Jessica Hurov is Alachua County's Tourism Development Manager and directs the county's Visit Gainesville, Alachua County Tourism Office. This office is charged with increasing visitation and the positive economic impacts created by visitors and visitor spending. Her office also supports arts, nature, culture, and sports events for visitors and residents alike. Jessica has over 25 years of strategic marketing and communications experience. Prior to moving to Florida, Jessica was a conference and event planner in Boston, where she booked and managed logistics for large-scale international conferences and high-profile events, such as hosting David Letterman in his Late Night from Boston special. When working for McGettigan Worldwide, she designed and created customized packages for corporate incentive travel programs. Prior to joining Alachua County, Jessica was the managing director of the Hippodrome Theater, where she managed business operations, including marketing, communications, and development efforts. In that capacity, she was an engaged participant in the Alachua County tourist development programs for many years. In 2014, she was awarded the Gainesville-Alachua County Cultural Affairs Board Individual Arts Award. Jessica graduated with degrees in English and psychology from Boston University and is a certified destination management professional. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you, Mark.
So for citizens who perhaps are not familiar with bed tax or tourist development tax, what is it?
That's a great place to start because that is the foundation of everything that the county is able to do with the investment of tax revenue that is not paid by our residents. So that's really the beauty of it. Tourist development tax is a tax that's collected throughout the state of Florida at a county level, and it is paid by people who are staying in overnight lodging within our jurisdiction anywhere between 1 night and 6 months. So who remits the bed tax is hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, campgrounds, and short-term vacation rental operators.
Does that include organizations like Airbnb and Vrbo?
Correct. So if you operate or run an Airbnb or a VRBO in the county or throughout the state of Florida, then you are subject to both sales tax and the TDT or the bed tax.
And what is the amount of our bed tax?
So it's a 5% on paid overnight stays, and in the most recent fiscal year, those collections were at just over $7.8 million.
That $7 million is an incredible milestone, and can you share with us just the gravity of what that bed tax means? Because, you know, we were all trying to recover from COVID.
Right.
And the question was, when would we get back to where we were?
Right.
But we've done much better than that.
Right. So our best prior year to COVID and to this record-setting bed tax collection was in 2019, where the county came in at about $5.7 million in bed tax. How we look at bed tax is divided up over 5 pennies. Each penny represents a percent. So at that time, we were just over $1 million per penny. With this most recent year, at the close of our FY22 fiscal year, we came in at just over $7.8 million. So we made a $2 million leap coming out of 2 of the industry's most challenging years.
Right.
And so bed tax is significantly up, and as our visitation impacts across the board, even when it comes to visitor spending and overnight stays. And so when we're looking at all of our KPIs or indicators of the health of the industry, we're seeing those on a trajectory of growth across the board.
Well, that's incredibly exciting,
Yes.
and there's so much that can be done with
Yes.
those revenues. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? How does the County Commission invest these revenues?
So the Board of County Commissioners and leadership sets the investment strategy for the bed tax. How I see our role is really as the executors or the administrators of that vision. And we know through year-over-year growth and how significantly it's grown, their investment strategy is working remarkably well. I mentioned before the 5 pennies of bed tax. The first 2 pennies, or 40% of all bed tax collected in Alachua County, is turned around and reinvested into the development of capital projects. So recent capital projects that many people would be interested to know about are Champions Park in Newberry. That is a baseball softball complex which brings in leagues and teams throughout the year. The purchase and renovation of the Alachua County Equestrian Center, which is now on a beautiful campus adjacent to the IFAS building and the Agricultural Center. And the Equestrian Center, like everyone else, we were kind of going through construction while COVID was happening. So, it got off to a little bit of an uneven start, but I'm pleased to say that this year the Equestrian Center is booked up nearly every weekend during the horse season. So,
and it's my understanding it's doing a little better than breaking even at this point.
It is. Our goal was really to come out of these first operational years post-COVID and hit that break-even mark, and we've done that. And one of the things I love about the facility, as well as the board, does in-kind contributions to groups like the Youth Fair. And the Youth Fair is able to have 3 weeks at the facility with all of the importance of the agricultural community as represented by the next generation.
And Jessica, speaking of capital projects, I know the hottest topic right now is the Alachua County Sports and Event Center located at Celebration Point.
Yes.
There's been some exciting things there recently. Why don't you share that with us?
So the board's latest investment is into the Alachua County Sports and Event Center at Celebration Point. This new facility will be fully open in May and will be available for basketball, volleyball, pickleball, conferences, trade shows,
gymnastics, cheerleading.
cheer.
Yeah.
So we've already seen incredible results from the times on this Mondo banked track. And so we are just thrilled. I mean, really, when the board evaluated from all of the possibilities of how we could invest bed tax next, this was the idea and the moment that kept rising to the top. And to see it go from ideas on paper and just discussions amongst our stakeholders and the hospitality community to a facility that is up and running and already filling hotel rooms and filling the restaurants and drawing people here from not only around the state but the Southeast is just remarkable.
You mentioned the Mondo track. It was a company in Italy called Mondo that built this track, and although we're opening in May, we had kind of a preview grand opening because we didn't want to miss the indoor track season. So the folks at Rad Sports and the Sports Commission have actually got a full season of indoor track happening. And we just kind of celebrated the sneak preview, if not the grand opening, and that was truly an amazing event. Let's talk a little bit about other bed tax expenditures and priorities of the Commission. Tell me a little bit about the grants program.
I'd love to. So the third penny, or 20% of bed tax collections, is going to grants. And those are all of the ways that we are able to invest in other tourism generating activities, and those range from major projects like the programming at the Cade Museum or the Hippodrome Theater, Dance Alive National Ballet, the Gainesville Orchestra.
And this is the Arts, Nature, Culture Grants program?
Correct.
Right.
So we work with 30 nonprofits through that program. We also run a local sports destination enhancement grant program where we are able to fund things like the Easton Archery Sports Center in Newberry and Gator Water Polo, also High Springs BMX. And then we also have something which we've reworked this year. It's called the Meeting Advantage Program. And
that used to be the old conference grant program?
Correct.
Okay.
So prior to COVID, we had conference grants. Really, our meetings industry was one of the last to recover. So people started recirculating with individual and family travel, and lots of private events came back, like the weddings that had been long postponed. Meetings and planned conferences were the last to come back. And so during the past 18 months, we've revamped that application program to make it more nimble for our sales directors and our meeting planners to utilize the funding that the board has earmarked for conferences and meetings. And we've had a great deal of interest. So,
well, it made so much sense what you did. I mean, conferences happen all the time, and sometimes they just spring up. So rather than just this one hard deadline on applying, you can apply year-round. So if you're having a conference, you really need to get in touch with your office. Yeah.
And I love it too that many of our local groups, if you're a member of an association, encourage them to meet here in Gainesville and Alachua County.
Right.
And we really love the fact that we're in the middle of the state. So we've all experienced having to drive that 5 or 6 hours to get from one end to the other of Florida. But I think that we're the most convenient county. We have 7 exits off I-75, and in a way it's the most fair to meet here because no one has any longer of a drive than the next.
And you can get, I believe it's up to $10,000 in assistance for your conference.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so you've pretty much explained the first 3 of the 5% or 5-penny bed tax. What happens with the other 2 pennies?
So the remaining 40% is where our marketing and advertising expenditures come from, and where the budget for Visit Gainesville Alachua County comes from, and also it's where we pay the Gainesville Sports Commission for their services as the county's designated sports marketing entity.
I see. And tell us a little bit about your efforts and your involvement with the Tourist Development Council and what your staff does.
So our involvement with marketing and advertising crosses tactics across all platforms. So we try to reach the consumer wherever they may be, whether that's going on the highway on I-75 and we're reaching them through billboards, or whether we're reaching them through our advertising in official Visit Florida travel maps and magazines.
Before you leave the billboards, though, I've talked to you over the years about this, and there was no question that when you made the decision to go with a billboard campaign, that you made the decision to really try to dominate the south and to the north, so that we, folks have an opportunity to know what's going on in Alachua County. And I thought you created what was just a really innovative program to encourage not just our own billboards, but others. Tell us about is it called the co-op, the billboard co-op?
So in tourism, advertising co-ops are common. Visit Florida puts out co-ops through the year that we and other destinations can participate in. So the billboards came out of COVID when we were not able to attract meetings like we talked about before. We did have research that people were taking to their vehicles and as small family groups still coming to Florida to enjoy our outdoor spaces and our beaches. And we thought, if we can't be hosting the same complement of sporting activities and theatrical performances, what can we be doing? And we thought the one way to get new people here is to draw them off the highway.
Right.
They may be driving past us to go to South Florida or to go back up north to Ohio or wherever. And so we launched a billboard campaign. Prior to that, the county did not have a strong presence on I-75. And we wanted to also support our industry. And so we made this opportunity available to tourism and hospitality sector businesses.
And the billboards are beautiful, I should say. Tell us about some of your other efforts. I know I've listened in on your Tourist Development Council presentations, and just the enormity of what your office produces is really impressive. Share some of that with us.
So 2 new things that we've launched this year. One is our brewery campaign. We know that the number one category of visitor spending outside your paid overnight lodging is food and beverage. So we wanted to look at ways that we could support and further engage our visitors with the beverage side of that for this campaign. And so we launched this fall the Sip and 7 Alachua County Ale Trail. We teamed up with all 7 of our breweries, and we have a pass that anyone can sign up for. It's free, and every time you visit a brewery or check in, you earn points that can be redeemed for free merchandise in our office.
And what is the mascot's name?
Yep. So we wanted a mascot for the campaign that reflected a curiosity and a interest in why would they go with that, but we went with a bison, and that was to kind of call reference to the bison on the prairie. And we have 7 little birds on the back of the bison, and he is named Billy the Bison and the 7 Brewbirds. And so
wasn't that a Motown group?
I know. So we've launched the brewery campaign, but what I want to share overall about the marketing is we advertise on radio, TV, print, the billboards, the digital, obviously social media and the Google AdWords, and lots of targeted publications. One example would be Living Bird, because we have great birding opportunities here. So we're trying to reach our customers where they are. And we know that for the most part, all of this bed tax and a great majority of the visitor spending in the county is coming from other locations in Florida and within the Southeast. So we focus a lot of it where we know our customers are coming, and the likelihood that we'll be getting new customers from a similar demographic.
I know that your office won the Flagler Award one year because of what I think is just a truly amazing product, and that's your What's Good event guide. Tell us about What's Good.
I would love to. So 4 years ago, we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of the What's Good event guide. And the What's Good event guide has grown from a mailing list of approximately 4,000 to now we're reaching almost 20,000. One of the things we love about the guide, and I'll share more about it just after this, but the engagement of the recipients of the guide is off any kind of industry standard, which an open rate on an email is really a good measure of your customers or the recipient's interest in the content.
And 10% is considered spectacular in the industry,
right.
I think.
And even we're averaging 45% open rate, and we're also monitoring the click-throughs on the events. So, you know, not only are we watching how quickly people are opening the guide, but then when they open it, where are they looking to find more information? And then we really know, okay, these are what the public is tracking on for this coming weekend or for next week's events and activities.
And it's not only a great guide for the kind of the region surrounding areas, but frankly, I look at it every week when I'm planning my weekend. So for residents of Alachua County, it has become the go-to calendar for events.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, why we were able to step into this space is multiple things were happening. The Scene stopped publishing every Thursday, which would really be
Scene magazine
Scene
from
magazine.
the Gainesville Sun. Yeah.
And we did a stakeholder meeting in March of 2019, and one of the primary deliverables that came out of that was the need for someone to be the aggregator, the curator, and the disseminator of this kind of event information.
Yeah.
And one thing we heard at the time was people were saying, well, there's nothing to do in Gainesville. And it's like, well, we can tell them every day there are things to do in Gainesville, but showing
so much
them,
to do.
right,
Yeah.
showing them through knowing, and it's right here in front of you in a really well-managed guide.
So I'm always amazed at how quickly this goes, but Tell us a little bit, I'm going to kind of go quickly through some of the points that I wanted to talk to you about, but tell us quickly about film hosting in Alachua County and your experience with that.
In addition to the advertising and the marketing and working with our grant organizations and the groups that we are shepherding through with the MAP program, we also host travel writers. As a matter of fact, we have 2 German divers coming to Alachua County this weekend, and they'll be exploring High Springs and for a German travel magazine. And we work with film crews. So one of the highlights of doing that just in this past year was a film project for a major streaming network.
And you're not allowed to say yet, I know.
It will be coming out, but it was a very unique project, and it brings both positive attention to the community about how fun and interesting it is that we are the location for this shoot, but also a great economic impact from the expenses and the overnight stays and meals for the film production company.
Switching gears a little bit, tell me a little bit about the agro-tourism conference that was held recently and exploring how to take advantage of those kinds of opportunities.
So Florida's top 2 industries are tourism and agriculture. And in Alachua County, we have so many abundant resources and providers of agricultural opportunities. So this past fall, our board directed us to convene an agro-tourism conference, and we were able to bring together people from our codes department, from the fire marshal came, Dr. Sanders from UFIFIS presented, and we are starting on, I see these as kind of areas of opportunity that are very interest specific. So whether we're looking at the birding or whether we're looking at agro-tourism or cave divers, we have these unique opportunities in the county to be able to position ourselves specifically toward both mass market advertising and subject matter advertising across those interest groups.
I don't want to run out of time without giving you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Downs and St. Germain study, because when you look at what is the impact of all we've been talking about, the numbers from that study were really quite remarkable. So share some of that with us.
I'd be happy to. So when we just go across the numbers, in 2021, we had over 1.2 million visitors that stayed in paid overnight accommodations in the county. Those visitors generated over $61 million in tax revenue. So we've talked about the TDT. That's just a portion, and not even the greatest portion of the taxes generated by visitor spending. These guests also support over 6,800 jobs. So
hotels, attractions, restaurants, all
correct.
Of what
so
goes into it.
The ecosystem of tourism impacts is we're looking at jobs, we're looking at the salaries and wages those jobs generate, we're looking at the taxes in the aggregate, we're looking at the visitor spending, which goes directly into our businesses, and we're looking at the overall economic impact. So when you combine all of these, we really see the role and purpose of our department here in the county as generating more tourism with the mindset that we're generating economic opportunity for our businesses and our residents. Because the bed tax, as we've talked about, that goes back into generating more tourism and providing increased benefits to our residents in those businesses.
Right. I know that accreditation has been a really very important part of conversations across the board at Alachua County in recent years. It's a real priority of our county manager to make sure our departments are using best practices and staying abreast of the most important kind of trends. Tell us about your efforts for accreditation in your department.
So for tourism, the accrediting body is called Destinations International. And I want to say there are just over 350 of our counterparts around the world, not just in the United States, but worldwide, who are accredited by Destinations International. So we have the goal of accreditation. All of our accreditation has been submitted. It's currently under review. There were about 128 standards of accreditation. So when they look at any visitors bureau, or they call them a DMO, a destination management organization, they're looking at governance, they're looking at administration, marketing, group sales, our financials. They really do a top to bottom review of all of the standards that we've submitted. So we hope to be returning to the board sometime later in 2023 with our full accreditation in place.
Do you know when you find out, or no?
It's currently in review.
Good.
And once it goes through the staff level review with Destinations International, it goes to their board. And we have promises from industry leaders in the state, from the tourism space, that they will come to Alachua County and celebrate accreditation when we receive it.
I have no doubt you'll be successful. I'll mention that May is National Travel and Tourism Month. That's coming up, and we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming to see me.
Thanks, Mark.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for kids, teens, or young adults. It's just not.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals and volatile organic compounds into your body.
And nicotine, the same highly addictive substance found in regular cigarettes.
Nicotine can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s,
affecting learning, memory, attention, and impulse control, and priming the brain for other addictions.
Vaping products also come in kid-friendly flavors that can make them appealing to youth.
And many kids also use other drugs, like marijuana, in vaping devices.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media,
many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping, because when you talk, they hear you.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you, and we'll figure it out."